What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in. We're going to set up the Hexagon chase cam today. This is the entire kit. So what you're going to need to put it together is basically a hot glue gun, and I recommend some 2-inch tape. Really any type of tape will work. You have a nose piece and the piece that goes in the back. You got your accessory kit here, we'll go through it in a second. And then you have your top and bottom halves. So I just want to show you the weight of the entire kit. That includes the tow line, all the accessories that would be connected to the wing. So this is the total weight that will be on your wing, minus whatever camera or protective case you're going to use. So the total weight for that is 140 grams. Okay, let's get right to the assembly. And we'll inventory this little accessory bag. Here's your mount, 3 zip ties, 2 hang point mounts, and your initial attachment cord for the chase cam for the 2 hang points. And then you'll have your line. This is rated about 95 pounds test, and a very lightweight nylon braid. And your shock cord. Later on we'll explain how this connects exactly to the wing. If you hit some turbulence, whatever, and there's a little bit of shock in the line, this will save you from ripping your chase cam apart or causing damage to your wing. Okay, so first thing you do, you grab, this is your bottom half. It does not have reinforcements here. Your top half has some reinforcements here for the attachment points. So it doesn't matter which way you put this together to start. You can put it this way, you put the bottom half on the other side, it doesn't matter. They're going to attach at the same points. But you're going to line up the back side and the front side as best you can. You just want them flush on either side so it's nice and square. And then just press them together while you put one piece of tape towards the back side. And you're just sealing the seam together so it doesn't separate. Then take one more small piece and same thing, press it together. Try and keep it as flush as you can. And set that piece of tape there. Okay, you've got that piece glued together. This is what it'll look like so far. Okay. Now we're going to want to tape across the length of it, just to reinforce it. Doesn't have to be the entire length, but like a good chunk, maybe 8 inches of tape there. Go ahead and press that down nice and firm. There we go. Alright, this next part, you can do the same thing, except now it's going to be in a shape. So, go ahead and flip it over. I'll just show you from this angle. But you're going to line it up, and you can go ahead and flatten these. Don't worry about distorting the shape right now. But you're going to line this up. Same thing. Piece of tape here, piece of tape here, while pressing it together, keeping the edges flush. And then you'll do one long 8-inch piece or so to reinforce it. If it's not sitting real flat for you, it's best if it does sit flat on the 2 lower halves. Kind of mold it like this for a second, and it keeps it nice and flat. You can see that now. Just lays flat for you so you can put the tape on. You want it to be flat because if it's curved and you put the tape on, it might shorten that joint, and that'll cause problems. Okay, there we are. Start to see the shape coming together, and you can't even really tell the seams are there. Looks like one continuous piece. Just a note, if you do mess this up, if you get done taping it and you realize that these 2 pieces are out of alignment, or same thing in the nose, or the gap is a little bigger than you wanted, it's totally fine. Just take any kind of razor knife and carefully, very carefully cut only the tape. Don't cut into the material. But you can cut that tape loose, and I wouldn't even try and peel it off. I would just tape over the top of it again. We can see right here, if you look right through the nose, you can see our marker for the top section and our 2 reinforcement tabs for the connection point. Right, this rear piece is what's going to primarily hold the chase camera in a perfect hexagon shape. So this is how it's going to look from the back side when it goes inside and holds the shape. You can have it white or the color of the outside. For me, I'm just going to use the green on the outside. So I would just set it right on the nose. Take this and just make it as level as you can. I mean, you basically don't have to do anything. You just set it in there and it levels itself. But that's how it's going to look, and it's going to hold that shape. And you'll notice as soon as you do that, it cannot distort the shape anymore. It's perfectly hexagonal. I don't know how you say that. This next point, pretty straightforward. You're just going to tack it in, but using hot glue. So you're going to want to tack just on the corner of each one, and then double check, make sure it's all sitting in there flush and nice and level. And then you can run a little bead along the flat portion of each section if you like. Anything more than that is really just adding unnecessary weight. It's going to be sticking in there pretty good with just the tacking. So let's go ahead and do that. You can see, as I explained, just a tack in each corner and then just a small, like 1-inch glue line along each flat portion. So, and that's it. I mean, you could toss this around the room. It's in a solid shape. It's not going anywhere. You can press on it pretty good. Don't break it, but it's very solid. And you can see I'm sitting here wiggling it. That's fine. So that's good. It's very lightweight still. Okay, for the nose piece, pause at this time. Don't just go ahead and glue this on. It's going to be a problem if you do it that way. So we want to first attach this mounting bracket. So with this mounting bracket, this will fit any sort of lightweight chase cam you want, and it will hang inverted when you put it together. For me, I like to use the Hero Session 5, and it hangs inverted, but there's a setting on the camera where it can film as if it's pointing upright. I need you to go. You can't just watch me. Watch the video when it's done. So you can adjust the settings in the camera. Any of your newer cameras are going to have that. If you happen to use a camera that doesn't have that functionality, I don't even know if there are any that don't have it, it's pretty easy to use any of your video editing software and just reverse the image. The first time I filmed with this, I forgot to flip the image, and I had to do that at the end, just flip the image over, and it worked just fine. We're going to first mount this, secure it using a zip tie and a reinforcement plate. This is actually a Kydex thermoplastic reinforcement. It's just there so that the zip ties can't pull through the polystyrene. Now again, the top, you've got a dot on here, or marking of some sort, to identify the top of it. And you're going to want to have this, the J-hook part, at the top. So we'll go ahead and slide that in, and use a little bit of caution sliding this in, kind of hold it together so you're not just ripping on it. Slide it in carefully and it'll snap in place. Then you're going to take one of your zip ties, and you're going to want to slide it, starting at the back side, slide it through the holes. Bring up here, you bend it and slide it through the hole inside of the mount, like that. Make sure it looks something like this. Don't go over the top of the mount because then it'll just slide down. And then through the other hole and out the back. So that's how it should look so far. Go ahead and leave it like this. This ratchet point on here, you're going to want to bend that over this way, like this. That way will allow enough clearance to center this when you glue it on there. So go ahead and connect that. And once you do this, it's semi-permanent. You can obviously change this at any time. If you want to use a different mount, you can adjust it if you want. Just take some scissors, some dikes, and just snip this. I'm talking after this is glued on. You can just snip this, remove the mount, put a new one on, but I highly recommend you reinforce it again with a zip tie so you can take advantage of this reinforcement plate so that you don't impact it on something, on a rock or something while you're taking off, and dislodge this mount. So it will be mounted in here permanently this way, so you'll just have to reach in from the back in order to send the zip tie through the holes. And then you can just finger tighten this. I like to have it a little more secure. I just use some pliers. Just pull until I hear a couple of snug clicks, and that's it. It's not going anywhere. And then just take some scissors, but you can just cut off the excess of the zip tie. And there you go. That's secure. Again, we're double checking. If it's not correct at this point, meaning the top section of marking has the top portion of the J-hook, like that. If that's not correct, go ahead and fix it now. Cool. One important thing. This reinforcement plate, there's two similar reinforcement plates inside of the cone here. You can see those little black markings up in there. These are your attachment points. Understand that those are in there, and when you mount these, I've got them adjusted so you can still balance them and mount these wherever you'd like, but you're going to have that reinforcement plate behind it, and we'll get to that later. Let's go ahead and mount it. So again, top of this nose piece, and if you look inside, you can see a dot up there or some sort of marking to indicate the top. What I'm actually going to do, just to be safe, but I'm going to find the top on here, and I'm going to put just a little pencil mark out here so I can't screw up and glue it on wrong. I would pre-fit this too. Just set this on here and look at it from all angles and just find that good centered spot and center position and orientation. You can see exactly where the points are going to line up around the hexagon shape, and then you're going to glue it. So make sure your hot glue gun is heated up really good, because you're going to put a good amount of glue on here before you're able to actually press it down, and you want to make sure it doesn't harden before you get to that stage. I'll just take it off in this orientation, and I'm just going to put a nice little bead right around the rim wherever I think it's going to contact. And you want to do this kind of quickly, because again, you don't want it to get hard before you press down on it, and then you've got problems. If it does happen, you could probably shave it off with a razor blade and be okay, just start over, but that's not really preferable. Get this on, and then you can apply a good amount of pressure just to get it to seat really well, and that's it. I highly recommend that you run another bead of glue, kind of a flatter bead around this outside, just to secure it all. And as I come around each side, there's these channels right here. We're going to glue those in a second, but I'm going to go ahead and dip down into the point, the leading point of those channels, and just fill those up with glue. It's a really good way to reinforce the shape, plus reinforce that nose piece. So I'm going to do this kind of carefully. I don't want it to look messy. I want it to be secure, but look good as well. Alright, if you just take your time on that, you can make it look kind of like a professional weld type look. It's really smooth, but it's contacting all the surface area. So that's it, your nose piece is done. And this thing, it's solid. I mean, it can bounce across the grass as you're taking off. Most chase cams do bounce a little bit as you're taking off and coming in and landing. This thing, it might suffer a little bit of scuffs or scrapes, but it's not going to break. You'll be fine. Go ahead and keep your hot glue gun on. The last step with that is we're going to run some small beads down these seams. You know, just adding like maybe a little 1/2 inch strip of glue right at the nose, one right in the center area, and then one right down at the bottom. That's just really holding that angle so it can't move. As you work your way around, remember there's going to be those 2 seams that are just held together by tape at this point. So on those, you can afford to put a little bit of extra glue to hold it. It's up to you, whatever you like to do. I'm going to put this hot glue gun away, and then we'll work on balancing. Okay, so for the balance, that's going to depend a lot on what camera you plan to use. When I balance this with the camera installed, I'm going to aim for either level or slightly slanted back. So to balance, we first need to install the entire camera piece we're going to want on here. As it sits level, you can see the camera is going to be propping it up. That camera is going to take the brunt of any impact as you're dragging it across the field as you take off. If your foot dragging really low and you have a really long line, it might be hanging slightly below you and could hit something. So I highly recommend that you have a protective case with your camera. I'm going to show you the demo of connecting the Hero Session 5, and I do have a protective case. It's just a waterproof case. These are pretty cheap to buy. These may get scratched up, dinged up, may crack over time if you're dragging it across like pavement when you take off. So they're easy to replace. I think I paid like $7 for this on Amazon. So this is the case that comes with it, and you, by all means, you can use this. It'll save you a little bit of weight. That weighs 16 grams as compared to 57. So it's a really large difference in weight, but I still fly with it, prefer to use this because I'd much rather protect the camera than just use this case and leave the screen wide open to hitting rocks or whatever. If you do buy a case, make sure it has this same mount so that it will attach to this GoPro-style J-hook. Go ahead and mount it at the angle that you think most likely you'll be flying at. To find this balance point, it's really just guesswork. I'm just using this round piece of pipe. You can use anything, a pencil, whatever, but just hold it here level and set the camera on top of it. And then you can kind of wiggle it back and forth and just briefly let go with your fingers and see what happens. So right there, if you saw that, but it wants to roll backwards slightly, right about there. And again, I want it either level or slightly angled up like this. I'm going to call that about 3/4 of an inch back from the leading edge. I'm just putting a little tiny mark there so I know where it's at. And the same over here. You can use a ruler if you want and double check. Okay, and now you're going to take these points, these connection points here, and just peel off the back. It's just got double stick foam tape on here. And just very lightly set it on here. Don't press real hard because this is actually, it cures over time. And if you press it really hard, it's kind of stuck. So we're just going to very lightly put it on there and just center it on that mark. But you want the edge, you can see right here, you want this top edge to line up right on the top crest of that. You can see that there, the channel. So you want it right on the edge of that channel. And that's important for the reinforcement plate here in a minute. So as you're balancing this, if you have a heavier than normal camera and you move these points all the way to the front here and it's still tipped nose down slightly, you're just going to have to do that and it'll work just fine. The reinforcement will still work. Just move them all the way to the front and then adjust that by applying counterweights in the back. So I'm just going to set it there just enough so it sticks. I'm not going to push hard on it because I might have to remove it in a minute. And then same thing with the other side. Just pay attention to where these are going. So this is the top section. You're going to want one on the upper right side and one on the upper left side. Okay, so now, before we do anything else, I'm just going to run this cord through, and I'm going to do a test hang to see how close we are to the angle we want. Because if we want to fix it, we want to fix it now before we secure it. So I'll pick it up. So keep your hand under it for safety. But that looks pretty solid. That's right on. It's pointed slightly up, which is right where I want it. Again, because as you pull it forward through the air, this toe line is going to be angled kind of like this, above the center of gravity, and it's going to want to pull it down. That's exaggerated there, but it's going to pull it slightly down. So level or angled slightly back is perfect for me. I'm going to remove this string for now. So I'm happy with those attachment points there. So take a razor knife and just cut a small slit just big enough for these zip ties to feed through. And you're going to want to do it right in the center where these holes are on the left and right inside of this channel, down to the very bottom of this channel. You're going to cut just a small slit. Then same thing on this other side, right here. So we're running a zip tie through this. It's kind of the same way we did with the nose mount up here. And that's going to secure it around that reinforcement plate in the back. Also, another great thing is like a small screwdriver. Once you cut that little pilot hole, you can just shove the screwdriver right through, and it creates a nice little opening just big enough for that. I'm going to do that on this side too. Right, so go ahead and feed this through on the bottom side like I said. And then you reach inside and push it out through the top hole. If you got ape hangers, large hands, and you can't do this, get a pair of needle nose pliers and just reach in there and twist it and push it right back through the hole. Now feed it, don't go over the top of this. Feed it down through it. We're going to go down inside of that attachment point like this. Okay? Then just connect the zip tie together. Pull it right down snug. You can see it tighten up down in there. Just make sure you pull all the slack out. Again, finger tight is plenty with this. If you're OCD like I am, you can get some pliers and just pull just an extra couple snaps or two. Just one more click is all I wanted there. And that's nice and secure. And you can see now how this ratchet portion ended up on the bottom side, so it's out of the way, so strings aren't going to get tangled up on it. And then just take your scissors right here and snip off the extra. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. In 3, 2, 1. And here we go. You can see that right there. It looks really clean, really professional, and it's not going to bother you, it's not going to come apart. So next we're going to attach the 2-point bridle to those 2 attachment points, and that's going to come up, I'll show you in a second, will come up to a single point with a loop where you'll attach your main toe line. So to do that, in your kit it's provided a little bit of tie wire. You're just going to fold it in half, make a small little loop there, and you're going to feed this through the attachment point. I'll show you here. And you want to go long ways like this. You want to go underneath that zip tie as well as through the attachment point. So make sure you're underneath that zip tie, and that'll give you added strength. And then you just put one end of the rope through that loop you made in the wire, like so, and then pull it through. Just like that. And then same thing on the other side. Make sure you're underneath the zip tie and through the attachment point. Put your rope through the loop in the wire and pull it through. And then you could just discard that, save it for later, whatever. So on your bridle, it's your best guess however you'd like to set it up. For me, I don't want this Y bridle to be clear out here extended long because there's no point in that. It's just 2 lines instead of 1. More probability of it getting wrapped around the camera or something. So I want to eliminate this 2-point attachment as early as I can. So I'm gonna go about there. That's just short enough. When I get a knot in here, it's not going to be able to loop around the camera. So that I'm happy with that right there. Over here, I'm just going to tie this off. And you can use whatever style of knot you want. You're going to tie it off here and tie it off on the other side and then cut off the excess rope. Okay, so we got these knots. I highly recommend using something like a bowline, unless you know another knot that holds really well. The bowline will not come loose. It's a great knot to use. I did that on both sides. And then you just want to cut off the excess string as short as you like. This, I mean, you can leave it if you want, I don't care, but it looks nicer if you cut it off and then just burn the end real quick. Don't start your chase cam on fire. That's how it's going to look at the end. You have your zip tie going through, and then your string up to your Y bridle. Okay, so there's your 2-point. The purpose of doing the 2-point, it adds stability so that it can't really yaw left and right very much, and it can't roll left and right as much. It's still going to happen, especially if you're in the prop wash. And that's a point I want to bring up. I guess we'll talk about it now. Make sure when you hang this, if you hang the string long enough to where it hangs below you when you're on the ground and you're going to take off, if it's still dragging on the ground, it's safer that way because it can't get in the prop very easily. But as you tow it, it's going to spend a lot of time right in that cone of prop wash. If you're doing turns and stuff, it's pretty stable. But if you're just cruising straight, it's going to be right in that zone of the prop wash. And even though this is very stable, it's still going to hit all that turbulence and kind of bounce around a little bit. Here in a minute, we're going to have my good friend Dana Denney. He's going to talk about the attachment points and best practices of how to attach this to the wing, where to attach it, and why, and what the safest outcome is for it. Again, you have this bridle point. I'm gonna tie a loop in it. It's gonna make it really easy to connect and disconnect the line if I ever want to switch out this line. You want it to hang level. So if you look at the front of the camera, that's pretty level. What you don't want is something like this, if you catch my drift. So you want it to be level. So when you tie the knot, don't do it real tight until you check the hang point and make sure it's level. I'm just gonna do a double line overhand. So it's you just twist it once and put it through the hole, and it's fine. There's not really any other knot I would recommend for that. I'm going to pull it just medium snug there so I can test it. Yeah, I'm happy with that. It's right there, hanging nice and level. That's beautiful. This is ideal, guys. This is what you want to shoot for. If you get to this point and you're not happy with it, now's the time to fix it, because if it doesn't look right here, it's not going to fly correctly. So setting up the line length is going to be at your discretion. I can't take any liability for the way you set it up. If you set it up incorrectly, you know, that's on you. And I say incorrectly lightly because this is a dangerous sport and you're taking responsibility for it, and it's really your own judgment how you connect it. So learn from others, learn from mistakes, learn from successes, and figure out the best way you want to hang this. Dana in his video is going to show some great recommendations. For launching, I recommend, if you can, have a buddy help you out. Have someone hold this behind your wing, and as it comes up, they're just going to kind of follow you and run the same speed you are until this starts to drag and fly on its own, and then they can let go of it and it's fine. That way it's not going to go in the prop, it's not going to swing down and wrap around your lines. So that's what I recommend. Just take either end of this line and tie the same kind of knot you did here. Not really any requirement on the size of this loop or this loop. You just got to be able to wrap it. All this line is going to feed through this loop to wrap around here. Or, as an alternative, I have a safety breakaway on here. You can get yourself a second one. I don't provide a second one because I want the breakaway point to be at the wing, so that if this has to disconnect for whatever reason, especially if it gets wrapped up in the prop and it zips that line down, if the disconnect point is right here and that's the only one you have, you still have all that line connected to your wing and it's going to pull it down. So, and there's any other combination of things that could happen. So I put the breakaway point, this connects right to the wing, and then your breakaway is this ring right here. So if anything happens, the entire thing's going away and you're going to be fine. That's not guaranteed. Again, this is a dangerous sport and I can't take any liability for that. Use your best judgment. If you want to improvise something else, or improvise additional breakaways, you could put an additional one here. That's up to you. Go for it. I'm going to take this loop we made. It's just going to loop around on itself, so there's no way this is coming apart unless you take it apart. Okay, and there we go. It's connected just like that. If you have A, B, C, and D lines, measure your C lines. You want to be on the second to last cascade is my recommendation. So measure those lines from your attachment point all the way up to where this is going to hook into the cascade. And then adjust from there. That's going to tell you where this camera is going to hang. I'm not saying make it as long as that line is. I'm saying use that as a reference so you know if it's going to be above your motor, if it's going to be way up in the lines, if it's going to be dragging on the ground behind you. So you can adjust the line to the length you desire, and then you can leave the excess on here, maybe a couple of feet excess, and that's not going to hurt anything. I might just tie it back to itself so you have that extra line if you ever want to lengthen your initial estimate. Let's say this is the end. I'm going to leave 3 feet extra in case I want to lengthen. Again, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to make a loop here and just pull it snug. There's your loop. And then you're going to take, on your shock cord, you have one end that's just a loop and the other end has a quick connect on it. This goes on the wing. This connects there. This connects to your tow line. So you're going to run this through. You're going to put the stretch loop, the shock cord loop, through the white one. Then bring all of this through. And you can actually disconnect these rings for a moment. Push this through the black loop. Pull it around snug. It will eventually go tight. And you'll get this little type figure 8 connection. Okay? And then just take this ring how it was and reconnect. So you're taking your breakaway ring, the smaller one, and putting it inside of this quick disconnect here. And then this ring will stay in your ring. And that's it. For the assembly, you're done. There you go. So a couple of tips when you're flying on this. This is high density, high quality polystyrene. It's coated in a thick layer of paper essentially. It's pretty durable, but if you get it wet, like such as if you're going to go fly with dew on the grass and it's sitting there for an extended period of time, it'll probably absorb the moisture and start to peel a little bit. Also abrasiveness, if you're dragging it across dirt or gravel or something, it's going to suffer some scratches and stuff. Structurally, it's going to be fine for a long time. So what I recommend is getting some lacquer, some craft lacquer, spray lacquer, just clear coat or whatever color you want. If you want to paint this a different color, go for it. But the clear lacquer is going to make it look really glossy and durable against water damage, and some added protection against abrasion. So you can do that. Make sure you remove your camera. I'd get some masking tape and just mask around this mount here. Make sure it's a foam safe spray or foam safe lacquer. They do make some. You can get it like Hobby Lobby, Walmart, whatever. I'll throw up a picture here for you of some options. Another tip, make sure that this screw is tight. That's a no-brainer, but if you set your angle up, 20 degrees because that's what you want, and you don't tighten this real snug, and you're taking off, as this bounces once or twice across the ground, it can easily dislodge that camera angle. Whatever that is, you can get a little piece of foam, little spacer of some sort, a rubber spacer, and just tack it right between the camera, right here in the mount, just so it has a stop where it can't move. That's up to you. I haven't had any issue with that. It stayed at the angle I put it. If you just leave this on the wing, it's not going to cause any damage to it if you ever want to fly without the chase cam. You just use this quick disconnect here, which is connected between your heavy duty ring and your breakaway ring, and you just disconnect it like that. And there you go. That stays on the wing, and this can go with you. This breakaway ring stretches as you pull tension on it. I don't know if you can see that there, but as I pull tension, it elongates and starts to expand, and that's eventually going to break if enough force is applied, such as your chase cam getting caught in a tree as you fly wide or something. That's going to snap that ring open. Again, not a guarantee. It's a concept. It should work. Use your own discretion. Just wanted to show you one more suggestion here. This is a safety tether, security tether. I just ran another string through the tie-in point here and attached it to the camera in any way you can. This just happens to be a little hinge here where I can connect it, and then I have a quick disconnect if I want to remove the camera or the case. Rebalancing. Let's say your attachment point ended up not being quite right and you want to adjust it just a little bit without having to remove these attachment points. A quick, easy way to do it is just use, you can use anything back here. You want to go to your furthest aft position on the bottom. You don't want to add weight to the top because then if you add enough weight it starts to roll on you. So go to your bottom position and just take a portion. These are just sticky magnets with a double stick tape on it. You can use anything. You can use tape weights. You can use a glob of hot glue and just pour hot glue on there. You don't want to add a whole bunch of weight. If your hang point is off by like that far or more, you want to go ahead and reset your hang point. If your hang point is too far backwards, and you want to adjust forward, or don't try and add weight up here. You're going to add a whole bunch of weight just to try and balance it a little bit. So go ahead and reset your hang point if that happens. But if you need anything, don't be afraid to reach out. I'll help you any way I can. Now, this thing is pretty rock solid. I feel like it's an awesome design. It flies really smoothly. Granted that it is a chase cam and there is a lot of turbulence in that cone of prop wash behind a paramotor. There's also a little bit of wake turbulence coming off of your wing. I would just ask that you keep that in mind as you're using it and you're flying it in different positions and different lengths of tow line. Experiment with that. If your first flight goes and the camera's just shaking everywhere and it's not stable and you're wondering why, it's most likely the position at which it's towing behind your aircraft. So try shifting it a couple of points left or right on the wing. Try shortening the rope by 3 feet, lengthen it by 3 feet. Try something different before you just throw your hands in the air and say, hey, this doesn't work. So also you can adjust the stabilization settings of the camera itself. If you have a really cool flight with great footage, but that footage turned out bumpy because your hang point was messed up or something, you can use any video editing software, and there's some awesome stabilization tools out there to fix not so great footage after it's been filmed. But once you get your hang point and your position right and stuff set up correctly, this should be a great chase cam for you. We got several colors. You can see on the left and right different colors we offer. And in addition to that, we can do white, we can do gray, we can do turquoise. There's going to be some more colors coming out pretty soon. I'm interested to see your guys' designs on how you decorate these things. On my first one, I put like a GoPro decal on each side. I made it look really cool as it's flying through the air. If you are going to decorate them, I recommend you do that and then put a lacquer coat on top of it. And I was going to do a great tutorial of how to connect this to the wing and show you exactly where it goes and the setup for that, setting up for launch. But as I mentioned, my buddy Dana Denney is going to show that to you, and I'll roll his clip now. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for your support. This has been a really fun concept to design and ship out and offer to you guys. Really looking forward to the footage you guys produce, the awesome videos you guys make. I'm looking forward to feedback. If you're new here to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to the side of the subscribe button. These are obviously for sale, so if you want one, I'll leave my email, contact information, payment information down in the comments. Thanks.
I want to do a quick rundown on setting this thing up to fly. It's at the very least just as important as any part of building it. As far as length, most wings you're probably going to be in the neighborhood of about 15 feet in length on your cord, but you just need to get out there and measure your lines. And for paragliding, it's not as critical to have it right, but for a paramotor it's super critical because you don't want that thing going into your propeller. One thing I'm going to recommend is you use some kind of a breakaway system. There's at least one video I know of where the guy was paragliding, was coming around on a ridge, hooked it on a tree, and then it just goes out. You don't know exactly what happened, but I'm sure it did play out very pretty. I've got this kind of cheesy key ring that you can see pulls apart real easy. You do not want to hook this to your trailing edge. I made that mistake. I definitely regretted it. The trailing edge is like the most reinforced area on the wing. It's also the control point of the wing. And my first launch, I hooked it to the trailing edge. I set it up in the worst spot possible for takeoff. And so when the wing came up, the camera had a ton of forward momentum. The camera swung in, came into the lines, wrapped around the lines, which had I had it set up in a better spot, probably could have still flown, but where it was attached to the trailing edge, it immediately started pulling the left side of the trailing edge down like I was applying brake and put me in a hard left bank. And I came close to just eating shit on that flight. Was barely able to land out on that one actually. Make sure to use your next cascade in from your trailing edge. I'm going to use my C line, and I like to alter it. One time I'll do the right side from center, the next time I'll do the left side from center, and just kind of break it up. And the point of that is just to alleviate some of the strain is all. So I got the little keychain deal. I'm just going to slide it through. Okay, so you can see I just got this hooked to that, and that should give way if it ever got snagged before it actually tore my wing, which is what I want. So ideally you want this to be as close to you as possible. You don't want it back behind the wing. You just want it as the wing comes up, to not actually pick it up until the very last moment. If it picks it up right next to you, that camera has really no forward momentum to swing into you. It's just going to come straight up. It's going to bounce around a little bit, and that's just unavoidable. But you don't want it to have any momentum forward, so that when you lose that momentum as you pull up, right before you start regaining momentum as you go forward to launch, you just don't want it to be swinging into your lines. And if your wing were to come down, you don't want it to swing into your propeller. You want it to just come straight up as much as possible. So I have it just basically right next to my legs when I'm taking off, and that's worked out pretty well. The big thing is, though, make sure it's under your lines. You don't want it coming up and being in front of you, and then it's just going to cause a tingle mess. All right, guys, well, I appreciate you sticking through on this long video, and I hope it was helpful. And if you get some stuff out there, leave me some comments so I can watch it. I'd like to see some of your footage. All right, thanks.
Quick time out here for a disclaimer. I cannot and do not accept any liability for any damages or injury or accidents which may result from the use of this chase cam. A lot of the way of how it's used comes down to your own best judgment and common knowledge. So please do your homework, research, find out the best way that this is going to work for you, and please be safe out there. Paragliding, paramotoring is a dangerous sport. The safety classifications, like the EN certification on your wing, will technically be degraded as soon as you attach any external device to it, including a chase cam. So keep that in mind. Neither I nor Dana accept any responsibility for any accidents that might happen. So please just take this information for what it is, informational. Again, stay safe out there. I wish you...